I found this story where it shouldn't have been, and once you hear it, it doesn't let go.
The first thing I heard inside the tower was not screaming. It was claws moving through the ventilation shaft above my head, slow at first, then stopping directly over our formation like whatever was up there had paused to listen to us breathe. I'm Mr. D, and you are listening to Mr. D Stories. Most of you listening to my stories are not subscribed yet. So please like and subscribe to hear more from Bloody Chapter, because the night we were sent into the Halberd Biotech Tower was the night I learned armed men can clear a building floor by floor, room by room, and still have no idea what it means to be hunted from above. The call came a little after AM, a 36-story research tower in the financial district had gone dark during a storm. Every external signal cut, emergency systems half online, and all contact with the executive level lost. Officially, it was a containment breach involving experimental animals. Unofficially, the money behind the job told us it was worse than that. We were not city police. We were a private extraction team used when companies needed. Dangerous problems solved before daylight made them public. The orders were simple. Enter the building, retrieve one senior executive alive, recover any sensitive physical assets if possible, and secure surviving staff on our route out. My team was 6 deep. Harlan led, former special operations. Quiet voice, perfect timing. Chen handled comms and sensors. Doyle carried breaching gear. Was point with me on alternating floors. Mercer ran medical. And I was rear security until the moment things got bad, which, as it turned out, happened before we even reached the lobby. From outside, the tower looked dead except for one blinking aircraft light near the roof and emergency red strips pulsing behind smoked glass on the lower levels. Rain hit the facade hard enough to make the whole building look like it was underwater. The front plaza was deserted. Nope, no sirens, crowd control, or fire crews. Someone with power had already sealed the streets before we arrived. The only people waiting for us were 2 corporate security officers under the awning, both pale, soaked, and trying too hard not to look terrified. One had a bandaged hand. The other kept glancing up the dark glass of the tower like he expected something to come crashing out of it. He gave Harlan a keycard case, a floor map, and one warning that made every one of us look at him harder. If you hear voices in empty rooms, he said, do not answer back. We all thought it was stress talking. We were wrong. The lobby doors opened into a cathedral of polished marble. Dead touch-screen kiosks, shattered glass partitions, and an indoor rainforest wall that had gone dry and black in the outage. Every security monitor behind the front desk showed static except one. On that screen, deep in a corridor somewhere above us, something moved across the camera too quickly to shape into anything human. The first body was in the elevator hall. White lab coat, throat opened, ID badge hanging from one sleeve by a thread, not dragged, dropped. There were blood flecks on the brushed steel doors and deeper scoring around the seam like something had tried to pry them open from the inside. The main elevators were dead, so we took the service stairwell. Floor 10 was the first research. Level, dark server rooms, cryogenic storage. Genetic sample vaults, half the doors locked, the other half forced open. We found claw marks on the walls there, too long, deep, deliberate, too high to make sense. On floor 12, we found the first sign this was bigger than a bad lab accident. The corridor opened into a behavior testing suite with reinforced glass chambers lining. Both sides and overhead gantries built like catwalks inside a prison. The walls were covered with display screens now stuck on paused files. I shined my light over one and saw thermal footage of something lean and fast moving through a mock apartment layout while armed trainers tried to corner it. The file label read, Adaptive Urban Predator Response Trial 7. Chen found another screen showing team formations, breach drills, flashlight patterns, staggered reload timing. Not animal studies, combat studies. We had entered a skyscraper where someone had been teaching prehistoric predators how to fight inside buildings. Harlan ordered us higher, faster. The executive we were sent to extract Elias Voss, Chief Operations Director, was last tagged on floor 28. We hit floor 14 and the stairwell. Finally told the truth. Doyle opened the fire door and found half the level in darkness, half in rotating emergency red light, and a trail of bodies leading from the lab wing toward the open plan offices. Some were bitten. Others completely mangled, right? One man was folded backward across a desk with his security pistol still in his hand. Another had made it halfway into a ceiling access hatch before something pulled him down. The room smelled like coolant, blood, and ozone. That was when Chen whispered movement. His thermal scanner had picked up 3 heat signatures in the adjacent conference suite. Small, moving, and really, they're circling us. Harlan signaled stack formation, and we advanced through shattered glass walls and overturned office furniture toward the source. The conference room door was partly shut. Doyle kicked it open. Nothing inside except a projector still running a frozen corporate slide about next-generation adaptive biosystems. We spread wider, checked corners, checked tables, checked the shadow behind the presentation screen, empty. Then Mercer looked up. One panel in the drop ceiling was missing. Above it, something breathed once and shifted its weight. The first raptor came down so fast it looked like gravity had turned into teeth. It hit Doyle full in the shoulders and drove him into the conference table hard enough to split it. Harlan fired twice before the second one came through the side glass wall and slammed Chen against the partition. The room erupted, muzzle flashes, glass, screaming overcomes, a tail whipping papers and blood through the air. I put 3 rounds into the first raptor's ribs. At nearly arm's length, while Doyle fought to keep its jaws off his face, Rivas shot the second one through the neck, but not before it ripped a strip of flesh from Chen's cheek and vaulted back over the broken wall in a spray of glass. The first raptor twisted under Doyle's knife, shrieked, and leapt straight at me. I hit the floor. As its claws passed where my throat had been, felt hot breath and wet blood strike my face, then heard Harlan's shotgun go off so close my ears rang. The animal collapsed against the conference table, still twitching, yellow eye fixed open like it was angry it had lost. Then the lights on the entire floor went black, total black, and somewhere out in the office maze, in a voice that sounded almost human through the dark, something said, "Help." No one moved for half a second after that voice, because half a second is a long time when a dark room is full of blood, broken glass, and things intelligent enough to use the one word guaranteed to pull human attention in the wrong direction. Then Harlan snapped us back into motion. Lights up, tight stack, Chen bleeding but mobile. Doyle wounded but standing. The surviving raptor had retreated into the office floor beyond the conference room, and every instinct in me wanted to chase it before it circled behind us. But Harlan was right. We were not hunting. We were trying not to become cornered prey. We withdrew into the central corridor, sealed both conference entries with emergency fire doors, and pushed upward through the stairwell toward executive levels. Floor 18 was legal. Floor 19 was finance. Floor 20 was private dining and investor suites. By then, the tower had changed from laboratory to luxury dark wood walls, smoked glass offices, expensive art, private bars, and carpets soaked with blood. The richer the floor, the worse the damage looked. On 21 we found a locked panic room with 6 employees inside. 2 in shock, 1 with a broken wrist, all of them saying the same thing. The animals had not just gotten loose. Someone had opened internal routes between floors, disabled compartmental lockdowns, and sealed the outer exits. One woman in executive admin told us she heard Voss himself order live transport from sublevel 3 before the blackout. Another swore the creatures were responding to audio cues played over the internal speakers. Harlan left Mercer and Chen with the survivors in the panic room and took the rest of us higher. If Voss was alive, he either had answers or was the reason half the tower was dead. Floor 24 was where the building became a trap. The corridor there connected the executive suites to a glass skybridge overlooking the city, and all the emergency shutters had jammed halfway down. Rain hit the outer windows. Lightning flashed across empty desks. The bridge looked clear until Rivas spotted movement under one of the reception tables ahead. Not one shape, several. Juvenile raptors maybe, smaller but faster, eyes catching the red light like coals. Harlan whispered for us to back off slowly. We had taken 3 steps when the overhead sprinkler system came on without warning and dumped cold water through the entire floor. Alarms screamed, red lights strobed, the juveniles exploded from cover all. At once, Doyle shot the first one in the chest and it still made it to him before dying. The second went low for my legs and I had to drive the rifle stock into its skull hard enough to crack bone. Rivas caught another on the sky bridge and the two of them went through a glass divider together, neither falling only because he jammed one arm through the broken frame and kept firing one-handed into its throat. The last juvenile vanished beneath the desks, circled wide, and went for Harlan's blind side. He heard it on the wet floor a split second before impact and turned just in time to put the shotgun barrel into its mouth. The blast painted the wall behind him black. We were still catching our breath when Chen came back over comes from below, voice ragged. Heat spike moving up the external maintenance shaft. Large, very large. It's tracking your level. That ended any idea of a slow search. We pushed through the executive wing fast, checking offices, storage, and secure glass meeting rooms until Doyle found Voss's access door hanging open on biometric lock failure. Inside, the suite was half office, half war room, wall monitors, live building schematics, asset recovery logs, containment override controls. On the central screen, frozen under flashing alerts, was a route map showing movement from the sublevels into public-facing floors. The path was deliberate. Someone had guided the predators upward. Voss was in the room, alive, one leg trapped beneath a collapsed steel cabinet, face gray with blood loss, one hand still clutching a keycard tagged with master override access. The moment he saw our uniforms, he started shouting for the keycard case, for the medkit, for us to get him out before the Alpha reached the suite. Harlan didn't move. He asked one question. Did you open the roots? Voss tried to lie first. You could see it. Then another impact shuddered through the far wall. Something huge moving through the service area outside, and the lie broke. He admitted the board had greenlit live combat adaptation trials using gene-designed predators modeled on raptor intelligence and larger apex territorial behavior. They had wanted proof the assets could pursue targets through urban interiors, use vertical spaces, and break team cohesion. But during the demonstration, one of the apex animals had turned on handlers early. Voss opened the emergency transfer routes, trying to move the pack upward and away from the investors. Instead, he turned the whole tower into a hunting column. Harlan should have left him there. Maybe he wanted to, but then Voss said the one thing that changed everything. There was a rooftop hardline on floor 32 tied to an external aircraft pad. If we got him there with the master override card, he could unlock the top floor blast partitions and give us a clean route out. Before Harlan could answer, the glass behind Voss's desk bulged inward, not cracked, bent. Then something massive hit it again, and the entire panel burst into the room. The apex predator did not leap like the raptors. It entered like demolition, all weight and force, smashing through the executive glass wall in a storm of steel fragments, water and white alarm light, and when it landed the floor shook under our boots. It was bigger than any animal I had ever seen outside a screen. Scarred hide, deep chest, jaws built for crushing. One eye clouded from some older injury, the other fixed on us with the kind of intelligence that makes panic feel personal. Doyle fired first. The round struck shoulder and neck and barely changed its speed. It hit him so hard he disappeared through Voss's desk in a spray of wood and glass. Harlan yelled for fallback, grabbed Voss by the collar with one hand and the override card with the other, and we ran for the service hall while the thing tore through the suite behind us. Rivas and I held the rear, firing controlled bursts in two-door frames and glass. As the apex drove smaller raptors ahead of it like a moving wall of teeth, that was the first moment I understood the tower had become an ecosystem. The big one didn't just hunt, it pressured. It flushed prey into angles where the faster pack animals could separate and finish what it started. We forced our way into a vertical maintenance corridor that ran from 28 to the rooftop system's deck. Tight steel stairs, narrow landings, no room to spread out. It should have been safer. Instead, it became a funnel. The first raptor came over the rail from above. Rivas caught it on his forearm plate, screamed, and used his own weight to throw both of them into the opposite wall while I fired so close the muzzle flash blinded me. Harlan dragged Voss upward while Doyle, bleeding from half a dozen places, stayed on the lower landing and kept shooting into the rising shapes below. We made floor 31 and found the blast partition sealed, exactly where Voss said it would be. He slapped the override card to the pad. Nothing. Tried again. Nothing. He started babbling about signal loss, dead relays, manual confirmation from the rooftop console. Harlan hit him once, hard enough to shut him up, then ordered us onto the final staircase. By then the apex animal had entered the shaft. We couldn't see it yet, only hear claws striking steel below us in a rhythm too heavy to belong to anything small. The sound alone changed how we breathed. On the last landing before the roof, Doyle handed me his spare magazine, looked at Harlan, and said, "Get them out." Then he turned and took position on the stairs alone. That was the last order anyone gave him. We hit the rooftop access door in a rush of rain and rotor thunder. An aircraft was already circling above the tower, matte black, no markings, just corporate recovery come to save assets before witnesses. Harlan forced Voss across the roof toward the hardline console while Rivas and I covered the access door. The city below looked unreal, 30 floors of wet light and traffic beyond a tower full of things that should never have been built. Voss finally reached the console and keyed the override. The rooftop partitions unlocked with a heavy mechanical clunk, opening a straight path to the landing pad. The aircraft began descending. Then, Doyle's gunfire below us stopped. 1 second later, the roof door burst outward and 2 blood-slick raptors came through low and fast. Rivas killed the first. I caught the second in the mouth just as it leapt, but behind them came the apex, forcing itself through the ruined access frame with rain steaming off its skin. One good eye fixed not on us but on Voss. Maybe it remembered him. Maybe it just recognized the scent of the man who had moved it through cages and pain and fluorescent trial rooms. It charged the console. Harlan shoved Voss aside and fired the shotgun until it clicked empty. The blast slowed the animal but did not stop it. It hit the hardline station, tore the console apart, and sent Voss sprawling across the roof. The aircraft pilot panicked and pulled up instead of landing. That was the moment Harlan made the only move left. He grabbed the emergency flare pack from the roof cabinet, slammed one into my hand, one into Rivas's, and one into the leaking fuel line running from the backup generator housing beside the pad. "Run on my mark," he said. We knew what he meant before he said it. He was going to burn the roof. Voss tried to crawl toward the aircraft lane, screaming that the assets had to be preserved. The apex reached him first. It pinned him with one foot and lowered its head like it was claiming something that belonged to it. Then Harlan fired into the fuel line. Flame raced across the wet roof in a bright blue-orange sheet, curling under the generator bank and erupting beneath the access structure just as Rivas and I dragged ourselves onto the side maintenance gantry. The blast threw heat, metal, and pieces of black glass into the storm. The aircraft banked hard away. The rooftop vanished behind fire. I saw Harlan only once more through the flames, still standing, shotgun in one hand, flare in the other, between the burning pad and the thing trying to push through it. Rivas and I made it to the adjacent communications roof with burns on our hands and blood in our boots. Emergency services finally reached the district at dawn, far too late, and by noon the entire tower was under federal quarantine. News channels called it a chemical systems fire. Corporate lawyers blamed a terrorism scare. The surviving staff were buried under sealed statements and non-disclosure threats. Rivas died 2 days later from internal damage and blood loss. Officially, no animal incident ever happened in the tower. Officially, the building had contained only advanced biomedical prototypes destroyed in the fire. But a month later, while I was still healing, Chen sent me an encrypted file from a number that stopped existing the same night he sent it. It was one still image taken from a traffic camera 3 blocks north of the quarantine zone just before dawn. In the rain, between abandoned cars, something large and reptilian was crossing the street with 3 smaller shapes moving in perfect formation behind it. Thanks for watching.